6:47 a.m. chains clanking like thunder. Diesel smoke choking my Arizona driveway. Priscilla Hartwell, HOA queen in designer heels, stood there smirking, clipboard clutched like a scepter. Her white BMW X5 purred behind her, vanilla air freshener clashing with exhaust fumes in the desert heat. Southwest Towing was hooking my fire response power trailer. Custom generator, emergency lights, communication gear I'd built for volunteer calls. She slapped an $847 towing bill into my hand.
Should have read the rules, Logan. No fire equipment on residential property.
I'm Logan Kellerman. Been volunteering with local fire support for 12 years. This trailer? My personal emergency response setup that I haul to wildfire scenes. But here's what Priscilla missed. She never checked whose name was actually on the title. Drop A if HOA tyrants have targeted your stuff. Because by lunchtime, federal agents would be knocking on her door with handcuffs, and her HOA career would be over forever. 3 years ago, I thought I'd found paradise in Meadowbrook Springs, upscale retirement community outside Phoenix, 847 homes where neighbors wave and mind their own business. Mix of retirees and young families, the kind of place where property values stay high and drama stays low. I'm Logan Kellerman, 54, volunteering with Pima County Fire District for 12 years while running my electrical contracting business. My wife Janet's a nurse at Desert Regional. We moved here for the quiet retirement dream. That fire response trailer in my driveway? Not actually mine. Fire department owns emergency response trailer number 7, purchased with federal disaster grants, assigned to my house for remote storage. Chief Patterson chose me because I live in the coverage gap and have electrical skills to maintain the communications equipment. Department saves money on station space. I get $200 monthly stipend for secure storage and upkeep. Been working perfectly for 3 years. The metallic tang of desert morning air always hits different when you're checking emergency gear. Distant rumble of I-10 traffic mixing with the satisfying click of trailer safety chains. Sounds of a functioning community where people look out for each other. Most residents barely notice the trailer. My neighbor Dave Morrison, retired teacher, good guy, actually appreciated having emergency response nearby. Makes me feel safer, he'd say, watering his tomatoes. Then Karen Williamson moved next door, 42, corporate marketing type who drives a Tesla that whispers like a library ghost. First week, she's photographing my trailer from every conceivable angle, muttering about property values like some kind of real estate exorcist. Week 2, certified letter in my mailbox. HOA Covenant 14B prohibiting commercial vehicles, emergency apparatus, or fire department equipment visible from public areas. $150 fine, 72-hour compliance deadline. Enter Priscilla Hartwell, 49, HOA president for 6 consecutive terms. Former corporate compliance manager at some insurance company, the type who probably dreams in violation codes. Drives a white BMW X5 that purrs with entitlement, carries laminated rule books like religious texts. Dave Morrison warned me about her measuring grass height with actual rulers. Woman's got issues, Logan. Stay under her radar. Too late for that. Friday evening, I approach Priscilla's fortress. Perfectly manicured doorway, framed by desert landscaping so precise it makes Home and Garden magazines jealous. Security cameras track visitors like a minimum security prison surveillance system. The scratch of her pen on that laminated violation logbook sounds like fingernails on chalkboard. Vanilla candles compete with the mechanical whir of sprinkler systems maintaining her magazine cover lawn that probably costs more to water than most people's car payments. I don't care if you're volunteer, professional, or Superman himself, she says without looking up from her clipboard scepter. Rules are rules, Logan. Community standards exist for a reason. I explain the federal arrangement, emergency coordination, life-saving equipment. She cuts me off with that patronizing smile people use when they're savoring your frustration like fine wine. File an appeal if you disagree. So I did exactly that. Spent my weekend creating a documentary-level evidence package, fire department contacts, volunteer credentials, federal regulations about emergency equipment storage. Submitted everything to the board with cross-references and backup documentation that would impress a federal prosecutor. Priscilla spent her Saturday playing neighborhood spy, photographing my trailer like crime scene evidence, measuring dimensions with actual measuring tape, Googling fire equipment regulations with the obsessive intensity of someone researching conspiracy theories. The acrid smell of her printer working overtime Saturday night probably gave her a contact high from toner fumes. Sunday, 11:47 p.m., because normal people conduct HOA business at midnight, the denial email arrives. Appeal rejected. Commercial fire equipment prohibited regardless of ownership or volunteer status. Towing authorized for Thursday, 7 a.m. Janet looked over my shoulder at the email. She's really going to tow emergency equipment? Apparently so. That's when I realized this wasn't about rules. It was about power. Priscilla had chosen my trailer as her personal Alamo, and she didn't care about facts, federal regulations, or public safety. Monday morning, I called Chief Patterson. Thursday morning, 6:45 a.m. The grinding whine of hydraulic lifts jolted me awake. Southwest Towing already positioning their truck in my driveway like vultures circling roadkill. I stumbled outside in my bathrobe to find Priscilla Hartwell orchestrating this bureaucratic theater, clipboard pressed against her chest like a shield. Her white BMW X5 purred behind the tow truck, vanilla air freshener battling acrid diesel exhaust in desert heat that was already climbing toward another scorching day. "Morning, Logan," she called with the satisfaction of someone who just won the neighborhood lottery. "Should have read those community standards more carefully." Jimmy Rodriguez, the tow operator, maybe 34, shifted uncomfortably. "Sorry about this, man. Got a work order signed by the HOA president. Says commercial fire equipment, unauthorized residential storage." I demanded to see the paperwork. Standard towing authorization, Priscilla's signature bold as a federal judge's gavel, authorizing removal of commercial emergency apparatus violating Residential Covenant 14B. The metallic scraping of safety chains dragging across my asphalt sounded like a giant's fingernails on the world's largest chalkboard. Then Jimmy peered inside the trailer and his eyes widened. "Holy hell, this is some serious equipment. Communication arrays, medical gear, industrial generators, this stuff's worth more than my house." That's when the real problem hit me. $47,000 of specialized federal emergency equipment about to vanish into a towing yard with security rivaling a convenience store at 2 a.m. Equipment that coordinates evacuations during wildfires, powers communication networks when cell towers fail, keeps people breathing when disaster strikes. But Priscilla was too busy savoring her victory to ask inconvenient questions about ownership. "Storage fees start today, Logan. $200 daily until you learn some respect for community rules." She actually checked items off her enforcement list like Santa reviewing good and naughty lists. My neighbor Dave Morrison appeared in his doorway, coffee mug frozen halfway to his lips, watching this spectacle with the expression of someone witnessing a train wreck in slow motion. The smell of his morning brew mixed with diesel fumes created an oddly domestic contrast to the bureaucratic kidnapping happening in my driveway. Following the tow truck to Southwest Towing felt like attending my own funeral. Jimmy Sr. explained the financial carnage. $847 initial fee, $200 daily storage, release only with HOA authorization. "Paperwork's legitimate," he said, gesturing toward my trailer now parked between a repossessed Lexus and what appeared to be a mobile drug lab. "HOA president's got full covenant enforcement authority." At the fire station that afternoon, Chief Patterson studied the towing documents with the grim expression of someone reading casualty reports. 31 years fighting fires teaches you to recognize disasters before they happen. "Logan, that trailer's our mobile command center for 3-county mutual aid. Wildfire season starting, we've got flash flood potential, and now our emergency communications are locked behind razor wire like evidence in a murder trial." I remembered reading something during my volunteer training years ago. Federal regulations about emergency equipment accessibility. The Emergency Management Assistance Compact requires states receiving federal disaster funds to maintain equipment availability at all times. Unauthorized seizure of emergency apparatus violates federal cooperation agreements and triggers multi-agency investigations. Translation: stealing emergency equipment isn't a neighborhood dispute, it's a federal offense with handcuffs attached. Chief Patterson's face darkened as the implications sank in. If someone dies this week because we can't deploy communications, that HOA president just graduated from neighborhood nuisance to criminal accomplice. He authorized emergency legal consultation and federal liaison contact immediately. Word spread through our volunteer network faster than gossip at a church potluck. Other firefighters shared war stories, HOA harassment campaigns, equipment storage battles. bureaucrats treating life-saving services like lawn maintenance violations. Dave Morrison found me that evening, staring at the empty rectangle of oil-stained concrete where federal emergency equipment used to sit. "This is absolutely insane, Logan. She's been carpet bombing me with frivolous violations too. Basketball hoops supposedly too visible, garden gnomes creating visual disruption, woman's conducting some kind of aesthetic warfare against the entire neighborhood." That night, Janet and I spread HOA covenants across our kitchen table like battle plans. Buried in the legal maze, I found gold. Arizona, revised statutes 48-805, explicitly exempts emergency services from local restrictions. Fire departments, emergency medical services, disaster response, all protected from municipal interference. Local governments cannot legally impede emergency response capabilities, period. That includes power-drunk HOA presidents playing dress-up as government officials. Friday morning, I filed formal complaints with the county fire marshal. Fire Marshal Rodriguez, thankfully no relation to the towing family, immediately understood the stakes. "We've tangled with overzealous HOAs before, Mr. Kellerman. They prioritize property aesthetics over public safety until body bags start appearing on evening news." The delicious irony? Priscilla's own landscaping violated multiple HOA rules I could identify with binoculars from my bedroom window. Friday evening confrontation via phone. "Federal regulations protect emergency services, Priscilla. You've seized government property." Her laugh could have frozen hell's swimming pool. "You're bluffing, Logan. This is private property with private rules. Pay your storage fees or lose your toys." After hanging up, I speed-dialed Chief Patterson. "Chief, time to contact federal authorities. This neighborhood dispute just became a federal case." Priscilla spent her weekend transforming into a one-woman FBI unit, digging through public records with the obsessive intensity of someone hunting buried treasure. She discovered my involvement in major emergency responses: the Wildcat fire evacuation saving 200 homes, flash flood rescues pulling 12 people from deadly washes, interstate pile-up coordination keeping 3 hospitals synchronized during mass casualties. Her brilliant conclusion? I was an attention-seeking volunteer exploiting emergency services for personal hero complex gratification. Monday's emergency HOA board meeting showcased her political genius. 48-hour notice ensuring working members couldn't attend. Only Elizabeth Montrose, 67-year-old bridge partner who probably still thinks computers are witchcraft, and Robert Story, an accountant who'd rather eat glass than confront authority figures. Dave Morrison appeared as democracy's lone defender, but arithmetic doesn't lie. 2-to-1 vote passing Priscilla's clarification that emergency equipment exemptions applied only during active deployment, not residential storage. They'd just invented a violation category specifically designed to criminalize my trailer. The community center reeked of Robert's nervous sweat competing with Elizabeth's industrial-strength lavender perfume and coffee that had been slowly dying since breakfast. This is how freedom dies. 3 people rewriting federal law in a room that doubles as Tuesday bingo night. But here's where Priscilla's amateur detective work exploded in her face like a defective firework. Fire Department attorney Rebecca Santos, former federal prosecutor who'd sent corporate executives to federal vacation resorts, reviewed my case and uncovered pure legal gold. Emergency Response Trailer Number 7 was registered as Federal Emergency Management Equipment Number AZ7749. Purchased entirely with FEMA disaster preparedness grants. I remembered the federal paperwork maze when Chief Patterson first assigned storage to my house. Property identification numbers, interstate cooperation agreements, disaster relief funding documentation, thick as a phone book. Rebecca translated the legal implications. Under the Stafford Disaster Relief Act, equipment purchased with federal disaster funds remains federal property regardless of local custody arrangements. Unauthorized seizure constitutes theft of federal property, felony charges carrying 5 years in federal prison where orange jumpsuits clash with everyone's complexion. Local HOA covenants don't override federal criminal statutes regardless of lamination quality. Chief Patterson immediately escalated to FEMA's Phoenix Regional Office. Agent Sarah Story confirmed federal registration and opened preliminary investigation into obstruction of federally funded emergency response capabilities. The bureaucratic machinery started grinding with desert sunrise inevitability. Here's Priscilla's mini twist that backfired spectacularly. She filed complaints with county code enforcement, alleging I operated an unlicensed emergency services business from residential property. Her manifesto demanded full home inspection for zoning violations, business licensing requirements, commercial activity permits. Her written complaint read like paranoid fiction. Resident operates unauthorized emergency response enterprise utilizing residential address for commercial equipment storage and deployment, potentially violating municipal zoning ordinances, state business licensing statutes, and federal interstate commerce regulations. County Inspector Miguel arrived Thursday, good guy who'd worked with our unit during flood responses. The metallic click of his clipboard and the rubber squeak of his work boots on my driveway sounded like common sense approaching. This lady's completely lost her mind, Logan. Volunteer emergency services aren't commercial operations. She's burning county resources with delusional complaints. But Friday's revelation from Jimmy Sr. changed everything. Tow yard owner pulled me aside with the expression of someone confessing to murder, glancing around like federal agents might be hiding behind wrecked cars. Logan, I shouldn't tell you this, but your HOA president's been running a kickback scheme. $50 cash for every towing authorization. 2 years, 23 jobs, she's pocketed serious money. The corruption mathematics, $1,150 in documented kickbacks, plus whatever other schemes her criminal creativity had developed. I filed public records requests for complete HOA financial statements under Arizona sunshine laws. Quasi-governmental organizations can't hide their accounting. Community resistance organized naturally. Dave Morrison connected me with other violation victims forming an accidental support group. Eleanor Vasquez, 78-year-old widow cited for unauthorized garden gnome aesthetic disruption. Sarah Kim, single mother fined for Christmas decorations lasting 4 days past arbitrary deadline. Tom Rodriguez, Marine veteran written up for parking his pickup 6 inches beyond invisible driveway boundaries. Pattern recognition activated like emergency training protocols. Systematic targeting of elderly residents, minorities, single parents, veterans. Demographics lacking resources for legal counterattack. Agent Story conducted neighborhood emergency preparedness surveys with the professional subtlety of someone who'd spent years building federal cases. Real investigators gather evidence without alerting criminal targets until handcuffs appear. The federal investigation web was expanding exponentially, but Priscilla remained gloriously oblivious that her neighborhood power trip had evolved into multi-agency criminal prosecution. Her weekend voicemail practically vibrated my phone off the kitchen counter. "You've made this personal, Logan. Biggest mistake of your pathetic life. I'm going to destroy you, your reputation, and everything you care about." Janet listened to the message twice, her nurse's instincts recognizing someone having a psychological breakdown in real time. After documenting her threats, I called Rebecca Santos. "Counselor, our HOA dictator just added witness intimidation to her expanding federal rap sheet. Think the prosecutors will appreciate her cooperation in building their case?" Priscilla's response to federal investigation resembled someone pouring gasoline on a house fire. Spectacular, destructive, and guaranteed to make everything infinitely worse. Her nuclear option arrived via certified mail during our neighborhood Memorial Day barbecue. Frivolous lawsuit against me personally for defamation, harassment, and intentional interference with lawful HOA governance. $25,000 in damages plus attorney fees served by her brother-in-law Trevor Hartwell, solo practitioner specializing in debt collection and small claims theater. The timing screamed pure Priscilla. Maximum public humiliation while families grilled burgers and kids splashed through sprinklers. She positioned herself on the sidewalk in designer heels, supervising the process server like a director staging a public execution. "This is what happens to troublemakers who think community rules don't apply," she announced with volume calculated to reach 3 blocks in every direction. Charcoal smoke mixed with her signature vanilla perfume, creating an oddly festive atmosphere for receiving legal threats that would bankrupt most families. Here's where her brilliant strategy backfired spectacularly. Trevor's panicked phone call to Rebecca Santos revealed he'd just discovered his sister-in-law had dragged him into active federal criminal investigation. His nervous laughter sounded like a chihuahua experiencing cardiac arrest. "Ms. Santos, perhaps we should discuss settlement possibilities. This situation appears more complex than initially represented." Rebecca's response carried the warmth of Arctic wind. Mr. Hartwell, your client just sued a federal witness during ongoing criminal investigation. You're either remarkably courageous or remarkably ignorant of federal obstruction statutes. The community intimidation campaign worked exactly as designed. Several neighbors who'd supported my position suddenly developed selective amnesia and urgent appointments whenever I appeared. Eleanor Vasquez apologized through tears that smudged her reading glasses. I can't risk legal troubles at my age, Logan. I'm so sorry. My counterattack began with strategic patience, hiring Rebecca as personal counsel. Fire department covered legal expenses for equipment-related issues, making her consultation cost exactly $0 and infinite peace of mind. Logan, your opponent has committed what legal professionals call lawsuit suicide. Suing federal witnesses violates approximately 17 different obstruction principles, starting with witness intimidation. And Rebecca's discovery process uncovered systematic discrimination with mathematical precision. Elderly residents suffered 19 violations compared to 0 for affluent white families. Hispanic surnames appeared on 14 enforcement notices, while Anglo names received friendly warnings. Single women faced 11 punitive actions versus married couples getting polite reminders. During my volunteer training years ago, I'd learned about Fair Housing Act protections in community associations. Federal law prohibits housing-related discrimination, including HOA enforcement patterns targeting protected demographics. Systematic violations carry penalties reaching $100,000 per incident, with criminal conspiracy charges for organized schemes. Board members lose corporate liability protection when engaging in federal crimes. Personal assets become seizure targets. Priscilla's desperation tactics provided daily comic relief. She filed noise complaints about my 6 a.m. coffee routine. Apparently my Keurig's gentle gurgling constituted excessive morning acoustic disturbance. My mailbox received citations for height noncompliance after she measured 47.75 inches versus required 48. Even my American flag got violation notices for extended patriotic display duration. The woman conducted aesthetic warfare with precision measuring instruments costing more than most families' monthly utilities. Security camera installation captured Priscilla's nocturnal obsessions in infrared clarity. 2 a.m. property measurements, covert photography missions, systematic harassment of vulnerable residents. The footage quality rivaled professional surveillance operations. Agent Stories' IRS criminal investigation referral elevated simple kickbacks to felony tax evasion. Unreported income plus fiduciary position equals federal prison sentences where orange uniforms clash with everyone's complexion. Our underground resistance grew organically. The private Facebook group Meadowbrook Truth Coalition attracted 89 residents documenting discrimination patterns with smartphone evidence. Screenshots, audio recordings, financial irregularities, crowdsourced federal case building. Jimmy Rodriguez's federal cooperation provided detailed corruption records, specific dates, exact amounts, targeting demographics. 2 years of systematic criminal enterprise documented better than most Fortune 500 accounting departments. Channel 15 investigative reporter David Park received anonymous tips about federal prosecution angles. Local television needed sweeps, weak content, and civil rights violations with criminal indictments made compelling viewing for audiences. But here's Priscilla's mini twist that sealed her fate. Amended lawsuit claiming I commercially exploited religious organizations because I'd provided volunteer electrical support for church fundraisers and school events. Community service became unauthorized commercial enterprise in her parallel legal universe. The federal investigation web contracted like a perfectly designed trap. IRS audit notices triggered neighborhood audible screaming from Priscilla's house. Her criminal exposure now included tax evasion, civil rights violations, conspiracy, federal property theft, and witness intimidation. Hilarious escalation. Motion-activated floodlights aimed at my driveway created light pollution visible from interstate highways. 12 neighbors filed violation complaints against her illumination system, forcing self-citation under her own enforcement rules. Property values plummeted 12% as buyers avoided communities under federal criminal investigation. Real estate agents warned clients about ongoing legal complications affecting 847 homeowners. Trevor Hartwell withdrew representation, citing irreconcilable professional differences, abandoning Priscilla just as federal prosecutors prepared grand jury presentations. Her final voicemail sounded like complete psychological collapse. "You've destroyed everything I built, Logan. I'll burn this entire neighborhood to the ground before letting you parasites win." The sweet smell of Priscilla's desperation was almost as satisfying as my morning coffee. The game-changing phone call came Tuesday morning while I sipped coffee from my favorite firefighter mug. Federal evidence files spread across my kitchen table like war room intelligence reports. The bitter taste of dark roast mixed with the sweet anticipation of justice approaching. Margaret Kim, from Nationwide Community Services, senior insurance adjuster whose 23 years investigating fraudulent claims had taught her to spot corruption from satellite imagery, had completed her independent audit of our HOA's enforcement circus. "Mr. Kellerman, I've analyzed 2 years of violation data using statistical software designed to detect Medicare fraud. What your HOA president accomplished defies mathematical probability without deliberate criminal intent." Her findings read like a PhD dissertation on systematic oppression. Priscilla had personally authorized 91% of all enforcement actions compared to previous presidents averaging 31%. You'd have better odds winning the lottery while being struck by lightning during a solar eclipse. 30 years covering community associations, and I've never documented patterns this extreme. Your president either possesses supernatural violation detection abilities, or she's running the most systematic discrimination scheme I've encountered. Nationwide's internal memo, delivered to all board members with the subtlety of a federal subpoena, recommended immediate policy cancellation due to discriminatory enforcement practices creating liability exposure exceeding acceptable risk parameters. Translation: insurance companies don't abandon profitable clients unless federal prosecutors start sharpening handcuffs. The domino collapse started immediately. Arizona state law prohibits HOA operation without insurance. All 847 homeowners faced emergency assessments of $400 to $800 each for alternative coverage, assuming any company would touch an association under federal criminal investigation. Multiple federal agencies began coordinating like a precision military operation. FEMA agent Story linked with FBI Civil Rights Division, IRS Criminal Investigation, and U.S. Attorney's Office. My neighborhood trailer dispute had evolved into federal task force priority. I remembered studying federal crime prosecution during volunteer training. When individual violations create patterns affecting interstate commerce or federal programs, local charges become federal cases with exponentially higher penalties. State prosecutors handle individual crimes. Federal prosecutors destroy criminal enterprises with decades-long sentences. Rebecca Santos explained the charge accumulation with prosecutorial bloodlust. "Logan, we're documenting theft of federal property, systematic civil rights violations, tax evasion, wire fraud, and organized conspiracy. RICO prosecution becomes viable if patterns cross state boundaries. Insurance cancellation notices detonated neighborhood social media like digital dynamite. Facebook groups exploded with resignation demands, property value panic, and threats to sue Priscilla personally for financial damages." Channel 15's David Park confirmed federal investigation scope through prosecutorial sources, scheduling sweeps week expose titled HOA Corruption, When Power Trips Become Federal Crimes. Board members Elizabeth and Robert demanded emergency meetings threatening mass resignation unless Priscilla stepped down. Her response demonstrated psychiatric-level detachment. Federal investigation was coordinated harassment by disgruntled malcontents. The whistleblower network metastasized beyond our community. Jimmy Rodriguez connected me with contractors serving 4 neighboring HOAs. Priscilla's kickback empire generated over $15,000 in corruption spanning 3 counties. Federal prosecutors began drafting RICO charges for organized criminal enterprise with interstate commerce violations, carrying 20-year maximum sentences. My evidence archive had become prosecutorial masterpiece. 1,247 photographs, 89 audio recordings, 156 witness statements, 24 months of financial documentation. FBI evidence specialists couldn't have assembled better cases, but Friday's devastating revelation from Chief Patterson changed everything. Federal authorities demanded my trailer immediately, not for emergency service restoration, but as prosecution Exhibit A in criminal trial. "Logan, that equipment's now centerpiece evidence in what prosecutors believe could become Arizona's largest HOA corruption prosecution." The irony tasted sweeter than championship victory. Priscilla's aesthetic obsession with unsightly equipment had created federal evidence proving systematic civil rights violations. U.S. Attorney Patricia Morrison scheduled coordinated press conference and emergency board meeting for maximum impact. Federal indictments announced while residents watched their president's perp walk live on television. Janet found me staring at the empty driveway space where evidence used to sit. Think she finally understands what's coming? Priscilla's about to learn federal prosecutors don't negotiate with neighborhood dictators. Some education requires handcuffs. My garage transformed into federal prosecutor meets conspiracy theorist. 3 folding tables borrowed from the fire station covered with chronologically organized documents, timeline charts, legal briefs, and evidence photos arranged with military precision that would make drill sergeants weep with pride. Janet surveyed the organized chaos while sipping coffee from her favorite nurse mug, desert heat already climbing toward another day hot enough to fry eggs on asphalt. Honey, this looks like you're planning to invade a small country. Just one HOA president, but apparently the paperwork requirements are identical. The neighborhood Avengers assembled. Rebecca Santos wielding federal prosecution experience like a legal lightsaber, Agent Sarah Story coordinating multi-agency investigation, Jimmy Rodriguez Sr. providing whistleblower testimony, Margaret Kim contributing insurance fraud expertise, David Park planning media blitz, and Chief Patterson serving as emergency services liaison. Rebecca outlined our prosecutorial trinity with surgical precision. Federal criminal charges for civil rights violations and government property theft, civil lawsuit for monetary damages and injunctive relief, plus class action fee recovery with governance reform requirements. Technical evidence compilation demanded professional-grade organization. Adobe Acrobat Pro, learned during disaster response training, created searchable databases of 18 months documenting systematic discrimination. Every violation notice, enforcement action, and discriminatory pattern cataloged with thoroughness that would impress FBI forensic accountants. Tom Story, Robert's accountant brother who'd witnessed Priscilla's corruption and joined our resistance, applied forensic software to HOA financial records. His discoveries expanded like wildfire through dry brush. $18,000 in shell company consulting fees paid to Priscilla's relatives, $8,200 in documented contractor kickbacks, $31,000 in administrative costs that somehow never improved actual community services. Total documented theft, $57,200 from an association with $340,000 annual budget. That's professional-level embezzlement disguised as community leadership. The Meadowbrook Truth Coalition metastasized to 267 residents across 6 communities facing similar tyranny. Our petition demanding Priscilla's removal collected 423 signatures faster than free ice cream disappears at summer festivals. David Park's undercover operation used hidden cameras documenting Priscilla soliciting landscaping kickbacks. Professional journalism meeting federal law enforcement with timing choreographed for maximum prosecutorial impact. During my volunteer legal training years ago, I'd learned that Arizona board members face personal liability when exceeding authority or engaging in self-dealing. Criminal conviction automatically voids all official actions during illegal tenure, potentially invalidating 2 years of Priscilla's enforcement reign of terror. Our elaborate evidence trap required precision timing. I'd create a fake violation by installing temporary storage shed, triggering Priscilla's predictable harassment response while multiple surveillance systems recorded discriminatory enforcement and kickback solicitation attempts. Agent Story synchronized with U.S. Attorney's Office for Cinematic Impact. Criminal indictments announced during live HOA board meeting with media coverage ensuring community-wide witness testimony and maximum public humiliation. Margaret Kim confirmed nationwide's ultimatum. Coverage reinstatement only after Priscilla's removal, plus court-monitored anti-discrimination policies. Financial leverage through insurance requirements. Corporate America's way of enforcing federal law. Community education exploded organically. Neighborhood seminars teaching Fair Housing Act rights and HOA governance law grew from 23 to 127 attendees as residents discovered federal protections against discriminatory enforcement existed. Rebecca prepared legal contingencies resembling military battle plans, emergency injunctions preventing evidence destruction, asset freezing orders stopping kickback concealment, federal receivership blocking HOA bankruptcy attempts, individual prosecutions for board members claiming criminal ignorance. Neighborhood surveillance network expanded with resident permission, creating real-time monitoring, preventing evidence tampering while documenting retaliation attempts against witnesses. Military surplus organizational supplies from local Army-Navy store created evidence tracking systems impressing federal prosecutors. Defeating neighborhood dictators apparently requires logistics rivaling actual combat operations. The delicious irony: volunteer firefighter applying emergency response skills to document HOA corruption with battlefield precision. David Park's media coaching felt like learning alien communication, television interview techniques, soundbite delivery, visual presentation for someone who'd spent 12 years avoiding publicity, key messaging, systematic community abuse affecting neighborhoods nationwide. Every Priscilla interaction now required complete documentation: photographs, audio recordings, timestamps, witness statements. Evidence Archive became federal case-building masterclass, organized for multiple audiences: legal briefs for prosecutors, community presentations for residents, media packages for journalists, training materials for other HOA victims. The anticipation felt exactly like moments before major emergency calls: equipment checked, personnel briefed, coordination confirmed, waiting for dispatch that changes everything. That metallic taste of adrenaline mixed with coffee and desert dust. Final preparation involved creating evidence presentations using professional editing software, 67-minute documentary chronicling corruption scheme with visual evidence, witness testimony, and expert analysis that would make Netflix documentarians jealous. Friday morning coordination call with Agent Story confirmed timing. Federal marshals executing arrest warrants at 6 a.m. while press conference and emergency board meeting occurred simultaneously for maximum community impact and media coverage. I made final call to Chief Patterson. Chief, we're ready to spring the trap. Priscilla's about to discover federal prosecution doesn't negotiate with neighborhood tyrants. Copy that, Logan. Let's see how she handles emergency response when she's the one needing legal rescue from her own criminal stupidity. The sweet morning scent of desert sage mixed with brewing coffee, fragrances of justice approaching with mathematical inevitability and community satisfaction. Facing federal investigation, insurance cancellation, and community uprising, Priscilla launched a scorched earth campaign that made General Sherman's march through Georgia look like a peaceful neighborhood barbecue. Her Tuesday morning retaliation blitz hit like bureaucratic carpet bombing. 31 new violations issued within 48 hours against coalition members with the precision of someone having a complete mental breakdown. Eleanor Vasquez got cited for bird feeder creating vermin attraction hazard endangering community health. Dave Morrison faced fines for holiday decorations exceeding seasonal deadline parameters by 72 hours. Tom Story received violations for parking his Honda 6 inches beyond approved driveway boundaries as measured by certified surveying equipment. Sarah Kim, single mother pulling double shifts as ER nurse, opened her mailbox to find citations for mailbox flag positioned in non-compliant orientation and doormat displaying unauthorized patriotic imagery exceeding approved size specifications. The metallic scratch of Priscilla's pen signing violation notices had become the neighborhood's most dreaded sound, like fingernails on chalkboards amplified through stadium speakers. Legal intimidation escalated when she threatened individual lawsuits against all coalition leaders, sending cease and desist letters claiming we'd formed organized criminal conspiracy to defame lawful HOA leadership through coordinated defamation campaigns designed to obstruct legitimate governance. Here's where her brilliant legal strategy exploded like a defective firework. Public records searches revealed she'd discovered the federal investigation's full scope, realizing she faced 15-year federal sentences. Court-ordered psychological evaluation documented stress-induced paranoid episodes requiring immediate psychiatric intervention. My counterattack was beautifully simple. Let her dig her own legal grave while federal agents documented every shovelful of evidence. Emergency injunction attempts to prevent media coverage claimed pre-trial publicity would deny constitutionally guaranteed fair legal proceedings. Geo. Federal Judge Martinez dismissed within 12 hours, sanctioning her attorney for filing frivolous motions that waste precious court resources on delusional legal theories. Priscilla's sabotage campaign crossed into criminal territory, attempting unauthorized property entry for emergency compliance inspections, filing false police reports claiming threats from coalition members, contacting employers alleging residents engaged in illegal community organizing activities. The most disturbing escalation involved photographing neighborhood children playing outside, building harassment files claiming coalition families created unsafe environments for minor residents through criminal association activities. Community terrorization peaked with mandatory meetings scheduled on 24-hour notice, threatening $500 fines for non-attendance. Agenda: addressing neighborhood insurgency and restoring lawful governance through enhanced enforcement protocols and expanded surveillance measures. Show. My security cameras captured her midnight surveillance missions in infrared clarity, measuring property lines with surveyor equipment at 2 a.m. while thunderstorms raged overhead, photographing residents from concealed positions behind decorative cacti, leaving rambling violation notices written in red ink resembling ransom demands from unhinged kidnappers. The acrid smell of rain-soaked desert, mixed with her signature vanilla perfume, created an atmosphere like a psychotic tea party. Financial desperation reached clinical levels when she attempted draining HOA accounts through emergency expenditures. $22,000 for security consulting via her brother-in-law's newly created shell company, $18,000 for legal compliance auditing by firms existing only on hastily printed business cards, $15,000 for emergency management systems that turned out to be additional surveillance equipment. Desert community. Credit union froze all accounts pending federal investigation, halting her spending spree mid-transaction and creating additional fraud evidence for prosecutors. Media warfare backfired spectacularly when she contacted Channel 12 trying to plant negative stories about coalition criminal activities. Their reporter called David Park for fact-checking, instead creating multi-station collaboration documenting her intimidation campaign across Phoenix media markets. Her direct contact with federal investigators, completely bypassing legal representation, violated every principle of criminal defense while providing Agent Story with documented harassment attempts and additional obstruction charges. The mandatory community meeting became neighborhood intervention featuring 284 residents, largest attendance requiring police crowd control. The community center's fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, while overwhelmed air conditioning battled desert heat and rising tempers. During heated confrontations, Priscilla confessed to discriminatory targeting with prosecutorial quality clarity. Some people need extra supervision to maintain community standards. You can't let certain demographic elements lower property values through their cultural differences and lifestyle choices. My phone recorded every incriminating word in crystal clear audio. Desperate for coalition ammunition, she attempted hiring private investigator to find compromising information about Logan Kellerman and his criminal conspirators. The PI, former police officer who immediately recognized federal case red flags, declined and reported solicitation to authorities. Elizabeth Montrose and Robert Story formally demanded resignation via certified letter citing personal liability and community safety. Priscilla's response: violation notices against both for conspiracy to undermine lawful governance through coordinated board member intimidation. Complete isolation became obvious when she installed unauthorized surveillance cameras aimed at public sidewalks, triggering city intervention and $500 fines for illegal privacy violations. Security footage compilation now included 73 separate harassment incidents, visual prosecution narrative more compelling than Netflix crime documentaries. Federal prosecutors notified her fifth attorney that Friday's grand jury would vote on 14 charges: civil rights violations, tax evasion, wire fraud, conspiracy, obstruction, and witness intimidation. Maximum sentence: 18 years in federal accommodations where designer heels aren't standard issue footwear. Her final voicemail sounded like complete psychological collapse. "You've destroyed my life's work. I'll burn this neighborhood down before letting you criminals win." Victory never tasted sweeter than morning coffee mixed with the scent of justice approaching. Federal case completion arrived like clockwork precision. Grand jury voted 23-0 to indict Priscilla on 14 federal counts carrying maximum 18-year sentence. U.S. Attorney Patricia Morrison scheduled Friday press conference coordinated with emergency HOA meeting for maximum community impact and national media attention. Media coordination exploded beyond local coverage when David Park's investigative series attracted CNN, Fox News, and MSNBC requests for exclusive interviews. HOA corruption stories resonated nationwide with audiences experiencing similar bureaucratic abuse in their own communities. Class action formation accelerated as 186 homeowners joined lawsuit against Priscilla personally, seeking recovery of $240,000 in illegally collected fees plus punitive damages. Her personal assets, home, vehicles, retirement accounts, faced immediate seizure to satisfy federal judgments. But Priscilla's psychological deterioration became neighborhood entertainment. Residents reported increasingly bizarre behavior, conducting property surveys with professional equipment during thunderstorms at 3 a.m., photographing residents through telephoto lenses from concealed positions, leaving incoherent violation notices written in multiple colored inks resembling artwork from psychiatric patients. Motion sensors triggered by pedestrian traffic created strobe light displays visible from interstate highways. Elizabeth Montrose and Robert Story staged desperate intervention attempting to convince Priscilla to resign and seek immediate psychiatric treatment. Her response demonstrated complete detachment from reality, filing violation notices against both for conspiracy to undermine lawful governance through coordinated board member intimidation and psychological warfare tactics. Here's the mini twist that sealed her fate. Court-ordered competency evaluation revealed severe stress-induced paranoid disorder, requiring immediate hospitalization. Her attorney requested competency hearing, potentially delaying federal prosecution while she received involuntary psychiatric treatment. My counterattack was patient observation. Let federal prosecutors decide whether she was legally competent to stand trial for systematic civil rights violations and financial fraud. Financial desperation reached pathetic levels when mortgage applications for legal fee funding got rejected by every lender due to pending federal charges and civil judgments. Credit cards maxed out on attorney fees, retirement accounts frozen by IRS pending tax evasion prosecution. Electoral manipulation became her final desperate gambit, scheduling HOA elections to install hand-picked successor, her 23-year-old daughter Stephanie, college student with zero community leadership experience. Candidacy papers filed at absolute deadline preventing organized opposition. Community mobilization response was beautiful to witness. Coalition organized counter-campaign with 3 qualified candidates, while voter registration drive achieved 94% participation, highest in subdivision history. Stephanie withdrew candidacy after receiving legal advice about potential criminal liability for association with federal defendant. Technical mastery reached documentary levels when I created 67-minute evidence presentation using professional editing software. Chronological corruption narrative with visual evidence, witness testimony, and expert legal analysis that would make Netflix executives weep with envy. Arizona election law provided additional ammunition. Individuals under federal indictment cannot serve on association boards. Automatic disqualification upon conviction, plus voiding all actions taken while charges were pending. 2 years of Priscilla's enforcement decisions could become legally invalid. The whistleblower network expanded exponentially when Jimmy Rodriguez's cooperation revealed Priscilla's corruption extended to 7 area HOAs. Total conspiracy involving $31,000 in kickbacks affecting 2,400 homeowners across 3 counties. Federal prosecutors added RICO charges due to interstate commerce impact and organized criminal enterprise spanning multiple jurisdictions. Racketeering prosecution carries 20-year maximum sentences and asset forfeiture provisions. Viral media sensation occurred when security footage of Priscilla measuring neighbors' mailbox height during live television interview generated 2.3 million YouTube views. Karen with ruler memes spread across social media platforms faster than wildfire through dry brush. The community center meeting where Priscilla suffered complete psychological breakdown became legendary neighborhood folklore. Screaming at residents, throwing violation paperwork like confetti, threatening to burn this place down before letting you parasites destroy everything I built. Police intervention required 3 officers to remove her from the meeting after she threatened physical violence against coalition members. Video footage became prosecution evidence of mental instability and potential danger to community residents. Property value crisis deepened as real estate market reacted to federal publicity. Home values dropped 12% in 6 weeks as buyers avoided communities with criminal investigations. Residents faced collective financial losses totaling $8.7 million. Nationwide's final ultimatum provided 48-hour deadline. Coverage terminated unless board immediately removed Priscilla and implemented federal compliance monitoring. No alternative insurers would consider association with active RICO prosecution. Community unity reached unprecedented levels when former Priscilla supporters joined resignation demands, Petition signatures reached 847, 100% of homeowners demanding immediate removal. Federal coordination finale approached like perfectly orchestrated symphony. U.S. Attorney scheduled arrest timing with press conference and board meeting for maximum public impact. Media helicopters positioned, national coverage confirmed. Priscilla's final desperate negotiation attempt through intermediary offered resignation in exchange for federal cooperation withdrawal. I recorded the conversation and forwarded to prosecutors as additional obstruction evidence. Her last voicemail message sounded like complete psychological disintegration. "You've destroyed everything I worked for, Logan, but I'll take everyone down with me. This neighborhood will burn before you criminals claim victory." The sweet desert air smelled like justice approaching with mathematical certainty and community-wide satisfaction. Federal marshals prepared arrest warrants for 6 a.m. Friday execution while I stood in my driveway next to the recently recovered emergency trailer, ready to witness the conclusion of this bureaucratic nightmare. Friday morning, 6:15 a.m. Federal marshals executed arrest warrants at Priscilla's home with precision timing that would make Swiss watchmakers jealous. News helicopters captured aerial footage of our HOA president being led away in handcuffs, bathrobe, and fuzzy slippers that looked like deceased rodents. The visual was absolutely perfect. U.S. Attorney Patricia Morrison's press conference at federal courthouse coincided with emergency HOA board meeting at Community Center, creating simultaneous media coverage that dominated morning news cycles across Arizona. I coordinated attendance at both events with David Park's news crew, documenting the climactic conclusion of 18 months documenting systematic corruption and civil rights violations. Morrison read the 14-count indictment before packed courtroom with prosecutorial satisfaction. 7 count civil rights violations under Fair Housing Act, 3 counts tax evasion for unreported kickback income, 2 counts wire fraud involving electronic fund transfers, 1 count conspiracy for organized criminal enterprise, 1 count obstruction of justice for witness intimidation campaigns. Maximum sentence, 18 years in federal accommodations where designer accessories aren't available through commissary purchases. The HOA meeting exploded with 347 residents, news crews from 6 television stations, federal agents, county officials, and curious neighbors, creating standing room-only crowd requiring police crowd control. Elizabeth Montrose gavelled the meeting to order while live broadcasts showed Priscilla's arrest playing on mounted screens. My evidence presentation masterpiece unfolded across 18 minutes of multimedia prosecution that would make federal attorneys weep with professional envy. Key statistics displayed on large screens with visual impact designed for television coverage. 127 discriminatory violation actions versus 31 legitimate enforcement measures. $57,200 in documented financial irregularities including kickbacks and embezzlement. 23 elderly residents systematically targeted compared to 0 affluent white families receiving equivalent enforcement, $31,000 in unreported criminal income across 7 community associations. The compilation video footage showed Priscilla measuring grass with precision instruments, photographing residents during covert surveillance missions, trespassing on private property, conducting heated confrontations with minorities and elderly homeowners while vanilla candles burned in background. Audible gasps filled the community center as residents recognized systematic targeting they'd experienced individually. Agent Sarah Story approached the podium with federal authority that commanded immediate silence. Her mic drop moment resonated through every speaker. What began as investigation into emergency equipment theft uncovered systematic civil rights violations affecting thousands of Arizona homeowners. Federal law enforcement takes community-based discrimination as seriously as any hate crime. Community catharsis erupted when Elizabeth announced unanimous board vote, 3-0, Priscilla absent due to federal incarceration, removing her from all HOA positions effective immediately. Standing ovation continued for 3 full minutes while camera crews captured emotional reactions. Live television coverage showed residents cheering, crying, embracing as conviction news broke across Phoenix media markets. David Park conducted on-scene interviews with elderly discrimination victims, sharing stories suppressed by fear for months. Financial revelation brought additional celebration. HOA treasurer Robert Story reported total recovery of $73,400 through federal restitution orders and insurance settlements, eliminating emergency assessments while actually increasing reserve funds. Legal domino cascade continued as class action attorney announced $340,000 settlement with Priscilla's homeowner insurance company. Additional federal civil rights damages estimated at $180,000 per affected resident created potential multi-million-dollar judgment against her personal assets. Technical vindication felt sweeter than championship victory when federal prosecutors praised my evidence methodology as textbook example of community-based investigation supporting federal prosecution. FBI Academy requested permission using our case for training courses. Additional courthouse drama featured Priscilla's booking process, federal court appearance, and bail denial due to demonstrated pattern of obstruction, witness intimidation, and community safety threats. Community healing began spontaneously as residents organized celebration barbecue in common areas previously restricted by Priscilla's authoritarian regulations. Children played freely while parents shared liberation stories and future community improvement plans. Property value recovery started immediately when real estate agents reported buyer inquiries attracted by corruption-free governance and engaged resident community. Market rebound projected 15% above pre-crisis levels within 6 months. My live television interviews generated 3.7 million YouTube views within 48 hours. Comment sections flooded with similar HOA horror stories and requests for legal advice from communities nationwide. Federal precedent establishment occurred when U.S. Attorney Morrison announced creation of HOA Civil Rights Task Force, investigating similar complaints across multiple states. I agreed, serving as civilian consultant, helping other communities fight bureaucratic tyranny. Jimmy Rodriguez returned my trailer with complimentary full detailing service, joking that customer relations improve dramatically when FBI agents start asking questions about business practices. Fire Chief Patterson presented departmental commendation for protecting emergency response capabilities under extraordinary circumstances while supporting federal law enforcement investigation. The evening news featured our story as lead segment on national broadcasts. I stood beside recovered trailer with American flag prominent in background, surrounded by supportive neighbors, delivering final quote that summarized everything. Sometimes fighting neighborhood bullies requires community backup. When good people stand together against corruption, justice isn't just possible, it's inevitable. The sweet desert evening air smelled like freedom restored and democracy functioning exactly as designed. 6 months later, justice had been served with mathematical precision and community satisfaction. Priscilla Hartwell received 24 months in federal prison plus $127,000 restitution after pleading guilty to avoid trial publicity. Additional $340,000 civil judgment forced sale of her home and liquidation of personal assets. Her family relocated to different state, probably looking for communities with less informed residents. HOA transformation became a model for democratic governance nationwide. New board elected with me as president by unanimous 847-0 vote. Apparently fighting federal corruption creates solid leadership credentials. Comprehensive reforms implemented immediately. Independent civil rights ombudsman program, transparent monthly financial reporting accessible online, community-first enforcement philosophy, mandatory anti-discrimination training for all board members. Property value triumph exceeded all projections when home values increased 18% above pre-crisis levels within 12 months. Arizona Republic featured Meadowbrook Springs as national model for ethical community governance, attracting academic researchers studying resident-led organizational transformation. The Community Service Excellence Scholarship Program, funded by $340,000 class action settlement, awarded first annual scholarships to 12 local students pursuing public safety careers. Ceremony held in renovated community center with expanded meeting capacity and improved accessibility. Federal impact reached far beyond our neighborhood when my case became legal precedent, cited in 47 similar prosecutions across 12 states. HOA Civil Rights Task Force recovered $2.8 million in illegal fees nationwide, while prosecuting 23 board members for systematic discrimination and financial fraud. Technical legacy development occurred when FBI Academy adopted my evidence compilation methodology as training standard, featured in Department of Justice Handbook, Investigating Civil Rights Violations in Homeowner Communities. Federal prosecutors nationwide now use our documentation techniques. Media recognition brought national attention when David Park's investigative series won Regional Emmy Award plus Edward R. Murrow Award for Public Service Journalism. Netflix expressed acquisition interest for documentary adaptation rights. Legislative success followed when Arizona passed comprehensive HOA Accountability Act inspired by our case, mandating independent financial auditing, prohibiting board self-dealing, requiring federal compliance training, creating state oversight agency with enforcement authority. Annual Freedom from Tyranny Day celebration attracts participants from across Southwest United States, featuring legal advocacy workshops, community organizing seminars, and public accountability training. This year's attendance reached 1,200 people from 6 states. Personal healing transformed our former evidence war room into neighborhood coffee meeting space. Weekly community coffee mornings became popular forum for resident engagement, proactive problem solving, and collaborative decision-making. Janet's nursing background helps identify elderly residents needing additional community support. Conservation initiatives expanded when my emergency trailer began supporting environmental projects, powering wilderness cleanup operations, disaster preparedness training, renewable energy education programs for local schools. Equipment originally stolen for aesthetic reasons now serves broader community good. The ripple effect spread through social media to over 200 communities nationwide. My free online resource center provides legal templates, organizing guides, and step-by-step methodology for fighting HOA corruption. 500 requests for guidance generated success stories from coast to coast. Insurance victory came when Nationwide reinstated coverage at 35% reduced premium due to exemplary governance and community engagement practices. Risk management case study used throughout industry. Professional recognition continued when Arizona Association of Fire Chiefs honored me with Civilian Excellence Award. National Volunteer Fire Council requested keynote speech at annual conference about community service beyond emergency response. Humorous epilogue. New board's first official act removed all enforcement measuring devices from association property. Priscilla's digital calipers, sound meters, and surveying equipment donated to high school STEM program with commemorative plaque. Tools for learning, not oppression. Financial recovery exceeded expectations as HOA reserves reached record $340,000 through responsible management and federal restitution. Monthly fees reduced 20%, special assessments eliminated for 5 years, community improvement projects funded without borrowing. National platform opportunity arose when House Judiciary Subcommittee requested testimony about civil rights in housing associations. My congressional testimony became permanent record advocating federal HOA oversight legislation. Next adventure beckoned last Tuesday morning when Colorado Fire Chief called, "Logan, we've got HOA president targeting military families here. Could use your expertise." Janet nodded approval while I grabbed my evidence collection kit. Meadowbrook Springs became Harvard Business School case study in resident-led organizational transformation, with graduate students visiting annually researching community governance models that actually work.
So Priscilla got 24 months in federal prison. Logan became HOA president, and that's fire response trailer, still sitting in an FBI evidence room somewhere. Labeled Prosecution Exhibit A. You know what's interesting about Logan through all of this? He never lost his temper, not once. Priscilla was screaming at board meetings, filing frivolous lawsuits, measuring people's mailboxes at midnight with a ruler. And Logan was just quietly building his case. She had all the emotional reactions. He had all the paperwork. I mean, think about it. Most people would either bet that $847 and move the trailer, or gotten into something screaming match at an HOA meeting. But Logan, he went home and started reading federal regulations, started documenting everything. 18 months of Priscilla thinking she was winning, because people were afraid of her. And the whole time, Logan was just methodically building a federal case. Have you ever dealt with someone who tried to bully you into backing down? Someone who can feel being loud with being right. I want to hear how you handle it. Drop a comment below And if this guy acquired justice appeal to you, he's a crime. We got more story about people who knew the difference between reacting and responding. Turns out, patience and preparations beats intimidation every single time.